Because the health and fitness world can get a little nutty, it's time for body kindness. Today we're going to talk about roadblocks on our way to building body kindness so we can create habits that last a lifetime.
And we're chatting about our book club selection, The Upside of Stress.
Hello and welcome to Body Kindness, where health and happiness begin by being good to yourself. I'm your host and your coach, Rebecca Scritchfield, and as always, I'm really excited to have Bernie Salazar here with me.
Hey everybody, thank you again for listening in. So excited to have you.
Yes, I'm so excited. We've got some new subscribers. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We want to know that we're being helpful. So if you don't mind, if you like the show, please write a review and also send us an email. If you have questions, we'd love to answer them on the show. Or if you just want to say that you're loving it, we would very much appreciate hearing from you. So Bernie, I'm really excited to chat this week. I just want to fill everyone in on kind of where we're at. We have been working on the Mindful March Challenge, and you and I have both been discussing that it's been challenging to be mindful this March, but
Absolutely.
I know, we're like, I was going to change it to Mindless March instead, but I figured that would not be a good challenge host. But hey, we're human, right?
No. Absolutely. And I was just telling Rebecca the same thing. As a result of this challenge, I really have and did take time to notice more things throughout my day. The smell of the flowers, my daughter's big toe. I mean, I thought of what we had talked about. I just didn't Instagram it or do that. So to all our listeners out there, if you were mindful at least at 1 or 2 or 3 points throughout that month, and let's go ahead and chalk that up as being kind to yourself and as a success.
Right. And we can always run it again in May and call it Mindful May if we want.
I love
But yeah, so I am sending out some emails to the email list. So if you're not a subscriber, you can go to RebeccaScritchfield.com, and I send 1 to 2 emails a month, and actually sometimes I can get out 1 a week too. But I really try to send helpful information, tips, ideas, and recipes and all that great stuff. So there'll be a link in the show notes. We will continue being mindful the best we can. And what I really wanted to kind of break into was something that we glossed over, and that was the finale of this season of The Biggest Loser. And I don't really know if we did that on accident or on purpose, but I know that we were talking about having watched it and that it really had an impact on you, that it kind of struck a chord, and that you decided that you wanted to do something about it in the hopes to help readers, followers, listeners, and maybe even yourself. So I want to let you fill everyone in on what you did and what you'd like to start the show off with today.
No, absolutely. Having seen another season of The Biggest Loser wrap up, I was, to be honest, just kind of filled with a lot of different emotions. And I needed time to kind of think about what exactly it was that I was feeling. And I came to the conclusion that as much as I was celebrating with these contestants, I was also worried about them to a certain extent. Not that they need somebody else to worry about them, or not that they should be in that frame of mind. But I know that when the lights cut out and the confetti dropped, that was just the start of what was to come in my life. So that being said, Rebecca, I wanted to write them a note, a letter. I don't know if it's a love note. I don't know if it's a tip guide. I'm just going to go ahead and, if you don't mind, I'm going to read it. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. For some reason, if this gets out there to one of my fellow Biggest Losers, please comment. Let me know if it's something you agree with, disagree with. like me for, don't like me for. And all you listeners, jump right in as well. You don't have to have been on the show. You don't have to, gosh, that's a tongue twister. You don't have to have been on the show to respond to this letter as well. That being said, let me go ahead and put this out there. My letter to my fellow losers. Another season of The Biggest Loser has just wrapped up, and we saw two brothers from the great city of Chicago crowned both as the at-home winner in The Biggest Loser. Seeing them win reminded me of my experience on the show, the sense of pride and accomplishment that I felt for having dedicated myself to getting healthy and the recognition that came along with it. In just a few days, I'll be celebrating my 8-year anniversary of having been crowned the at-home winner on season 5. And I can't help but look back and think of all the things I wished I knew then that I'm just beginning to fully understand about my experience now. So it's in this vein that I write this letter of encouragement and advice to the new alumni of the show, in the hopes that they will find a sense of peace, balance, and a greater sense of self-understanding. Below are 3 pointers that I wish someone would have shared with me as I boarded the plane for home. 1. Take time to unpack. The last several months have been a whirlwind, and you have been inundated with not only the BL's version of the do's and don'ts of healthy living, but more significantly, a wide range of emotions that you haven't really had time to fully unpack. I know what you're probably thinking. I already talked it over with my trainer or other various staff from the show, and I'm good. Believe me when I say you're not. I'm sorry to have to tell you, but the experiences and emotions that contributed to your past state aren't going to magically be resolved because of an on-air breakthrough. Although significant, your ability to identify some of those unhealthy contributing factors was just that, a breakthrough, needing further exploration, awareness, and will take time for resolve to be found. My suggestion is to identify a professional psychologist, psychiatrist, or certified life coach that you can work with to better understand the full impact of the transformation you have just undergone. I'd like to leave you little room for misinterpretation here. This is a professional, much like an RD or a certified personal trainer, that you will need to have continual interaction with if you're going to see results. Please don't overlook this tip. If you're truly wanting long-term success, this is just as critical as working out or eating healthy. 2. Out with the old, in with the new. Well, sort of. Upon arriving home, you're going to be subject to all those familiar places and faces that played a part in your past life. Do not put off identifying which things will serve to enrich your life and which things are better left in the past. I know this is easier said than done, but take it one small step at a time. For example, start with the easy stuff. That buffet-style restaurant that you love to go to because it's such a great deal. Let's face it, you've probably already tried everything it has to serve up. It's time to discover a better choice. Or how about getting rid of old clothes that no longer fit in exchange for new, better fitting ones? Not only can this be fun, but it does allow you the chance to personally celebrate how far you've come. Now for some of those not so easy decisions, those personal relationships, you know the ones I'm talking about. That friend or family member who's been waiting to see you so that they can celebrate your transformation by taking you to an old stomping ground or treating you to your favorite hometown treat. Redefining your relationship with loved ones can be tricky. It all comes down to communication. How would you like to incorporate that person into your new life? What role do you see them playing that will contribute to the new you? How can you go about communicating that to them in a way that won't harm the relationship? If it's a casual relationship, perhaps it won't be that difficult. But if it's a loved one, this can prove definitely harder. My advice is to be open and honest with them about what you would like their new role in your life to be. Ask them if they're willing to work on your relationship so that it reflects who you want to be moving forward. If they're up to working with you in achieving your new goals, then great. If not, don't be afraid to lessen your interaction with them. Or if you have to, let it go altogether. How about those relationships you can't simply let go? A life partner, your kids, parents, brother, sister? This can be really difficult. I found some success in being unwavering in your dedication to living healthier. Plan your interactions with them to ensure they involve activities you're comfortable with, and sit out those family get togethers that you know are going to put you in a place that you're not okay with. You owe it to yourself to communicate to those around you that this change wasn't merely for the sake of the show. 3, redefine your definition of health. Lastly, it is critical that you take the time to redefine what health means to you. Prior to your experience on the show, maybe you thought that being healthy meant seeing a certain number on the scale or seeing a slimmer you in the mirror. On the show, it was all about grueling workouts and a strict diet. You literally went from not completely knowing what it was to be healthy to the total opposite extreme of counting every calorie you consumed and every calorie you worked off. I hope by now you've begun to realize that health is more than a number. For me, being healthy is a feeling, a state of being and physically, the ability to be an active participant in my own life. If you would have asked me to define what it meant to be healthy after my time on the show, I might have given you a similar answer as the one above. But the difference now is that through hard work and careful self-reflection, I've moved past the rhetoric and actually understand and value what I was just sort of spouting off back then. Knowing that working out 3 to 6 hours a day isn't realistic, or that counting every single calorie you consume will eventually get old, how will you choose to define health so that the definition contributes to your well-being rather than stands for something you are in constant fear of not living up to? Redefining the term health in your life will serve to help you identify and overcome the inevitable barriers you will encounter along your journey. Most importantly, knowing what role health plays in your life should you allow it, will provide you room for true reflection, complete self-care, true body kindness, and lasting happiness. So there you are, a few pointers from a fellow loser. I hope this brief letter and the content shared within help to shed light on some of the many things you might encounter along your journey in the years to come. I wish each and every one of you the very best, and most of all, continued health. Sincerely, Bernie.
Wow.
So, I'm just I was waiting for a response, and I wish our listeners could just see Rebecca's face, because although this is a podcast, we are able to see each other. She was just paused there for a minute. So what do you think, Becca? That's what I came up with.
Yeah, I'm making the deer in the headlights face. Don't run me over. No, I feel bowled over with emotion right now. I'm kind of speechless. At first, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for deciding to share your thoughts and feelings with me. I've known you for so long that, and I feel like that you were reading from the heart now, but definitely to the version of you that I first met. So for me, it was very chilling, kind of goosebumpy kind of way. But I have a lot of thoughts, and I just want you to know, no matter what kind of feedback you get, that it was very honest, real, truthful. I don't agree with everything you say, but I'll let you know. Just little tweaks, little tweaks, Bernie.
And that's what we're here for. That's what I love about being a part of this podcast. I do know that parts of what I shared are can be left open to interpretation, can sound harsh, but let's go ahead and get started. Becca, let's
Sure.
start. I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I find it very interesting and very telling that you mentioned before you even started the letter, when you were sharing with the listeners, that you were filled with complex emotions watching finale, and one of the emotions you felt was worry, a genuine concern, and that is very telling because you also, in the opening of the letter, I don't remember the exact line, but kind of alluded to that being on the show was a part of dedication to health. And I can't deny what an individual's intention is, and I think it's a great, very important goal for people to choose to want to be healthy. But, and no offense, The Biggest Loser is a game show.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. And I know that, but I know for me, I didn't realize what I was signing up for. When I saw hey, let's go audition for this show. Yeah, it tells you right there it's a show. But for me, I was like, check this out. I might be able to see my feet at the end of this experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was about the health, but you're absolutely right. It is a show. And not just that, when I talk about had dedicated myself to getting healthy, let me be clear. It was the definition that I was given
Right.
By society at large. And then, of course, that was somewhat reiterated on the show. That's what I had strived for. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we could take a sidebar down that road about what that means, because I think there's a lot to be said for motivation and how the human mind works, gameplay, money is at stake. And I don't think that it is for the true, genuine concern out of well-being. And it can get a little twisted between an individual being concerned for their own well-being, plus, psychologically being in a game show, and also feeling, positive habits take over, but that not necessarily feeling that they're your own yet. But then also this new identity and knowing who that person is and how that works, getting wrapped up into the competition of it and the money of it. And I just think it's a big distraction from the real focus, which is getting healthy from the inside out and healing yourself. And I think you're still on that journey. We all kind of are, but I think you are a different person now than you were 8 years ago. And you had to go through a lot to get to where you are. And that's what makes this letter so awesome and meaningful and wise.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with you, Rebecca. There are still a lot of things that, always we need to continue to explore and dive into. I would love to have that kind of conversation about the things and the points that you just brought up, because even in the opening, and I want people to be aware that I am very aware of every letter and that I placed in here, not just word. I said something about here we go. It says, I felt for having dedicated myself to getting healthy and the recognition that came along with it. Do you see how that's put in there?
Worthiness.
And what that is and how it was instantly gratified there, and how telling and how was that going to play out in the years to come. Right. So let's explore that.
We all need to belong. Belonging is, if you follow psychology, which, by the way, you sounded like a pretty darn good therapist in that letter.
Oh.
Which I always tell people, all the stuff I put out there is to help me first. So in finishing up my manuscript, I'm like, I'm helping myself first. If it helps other people, I'm stoked.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm sure that was beneficial for you. But we all need to feel a sense of belonging. It's one of our basic human needs, right up there with food, water, sleep, and sex, as a species, if we're not making babies like you and I are doing.
Yes.
Not together, of course. I mean, I love you, but not in that way. But belonging is very close to that. And so when you talk about the recognition that comes with it, Well, first of all, weight stigma. You're not worthy unless you look a certain way. What about supporting people who want to do a better job at taking care of themselves and letting weight changes be a side effect of that? That is the better approach. There's going to be fat bodies no matter what, because we have size diversity. And I could go on and on and on and on and on. But we have a serious problem in our culture when we consistently apply a stigma and a bias to people based on their weight and shape. Those people experience oppression, and studies have shown that they are less likely to do self-care behaviors when they're being bullied, biased against, and stigmatized. That is not body kindness. That's not approaching from a place of love, connection, and caring. And it is a horrible sickness in our culture. Every body is good. Every body deserves respect. And every individual has a right to decide whether or not they want to work on health goals, and when they do, what they want to do.
I agree with that. I do. And that's where kind of this letter came from. I think that you're coming off of this high of really having been able to do something that maybe you struggled with for years or a lifetime. Then on top of that, there's this recognition. And then in the back of your head, there's this whole, oh my gosh, can I hold this together? And you've skipped over 1,000,001 steps. First of all, again, what just happened to me? Mm-hmm. Who can I trust? Who loves me? And
you
why?
You really learn.
And then, who is this new me that I'm looking at? Because in the time frame that this transformation happens on the show, or any weight loss show for that matter, it is very short. Relatively, it's very short. And I remember looking at the in the mirror and thinking, who is this guy? I mean, the whole facial structure is different. Your body's different. I mean, people they talk to you differently, and you don't realize these things until you go through it. You're like, wait, did that lady just wink at me? You're like, something must be in her. So it's really interesting to deal with all the changes that you encounter as a result of the show. I'll go ahead and let you chime back in with the rest of the letter. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I actually haven't even started with the 3 points yet. I'm just getting on my soapboxes. But it's good to redirect me to comment.
And this is what I love about this podcast is, Rebecca, you are and have been a big advocate on the side of what effect is this having on the contestants for the show. We know that. I'm coming from hey, I was on that show. But in our conversations, both on and off the air, I have been deeply affected by this experience in ways that I am still unpacking, in ways that I've made progress with, but that's why our friendship has developed.
Well, and let me just be clear, I am a viewer, right? So and there was a time when I watched it in the early days where I would see people on camera talking about transformation and the tears, and I really felt a connection, and I felt that there was transformation happening. It was before I really got wise to the dangers of rapid weight loss and rigid dieting, and when you work on the body before the mind. And it's not for me to judge the show. It is a game show. It's there for entertainment. It's not for me to judge. I could never say that there was nothing good that comes out of it, because each individual contestant, you can't possibly separate it. I don't think it really even is beneficial to critique the show, except that it's part of the culture, and it's a connection that we share. It could be any number of things in the culture that has an influence, but if viewers are watching weight loss competition shows, or, strongest this or that type shows, it is for entertainment. Other viewers might be watching and hoping to be inspired. And I think that it's up to you to choose who and what inspires you, but it has to come from a place of love. I always say you can't hate yourself healthy. And I think that if you're doing comparisons, trying to keep up with the amount of weight loss, if you're excited about the bullying that you see on TV, or you think that that's what it takes to get healthy, all of that is a wrong message, and I don't think it adds value. I don't think it's there. It might be something a contestant chooses to try to do to get healthy. I mean, it's access to care and information you wouldn't otherwise get, but I think the bigger picture, you don't always see what ends up being an edited down show, and I think that society does more harm than good.
I agree with you there, but a lot of, and I want to be very specific to our listeners, you don't see a lot of the behind the scenes as well. Some of the work that is done, or at least the more meaningful relationships that are formed maybe between contestants or through contestants and their trainers. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't last, but how can it? Yeah. You know, I mean, you were brought together under these very intense situation, and a lot of times, you know, once it's over, you do go your own ways. You stick together for a while, and then you kind of disperse, and you're left to deal with it on your own. At the same time, I go back and forth with this, and I'm very open with you about some days I love the fact that I was on the show, other days I don't, but they're for reasons that I haven't been able to completely wrap my hands around that I'm trying to right now. So for any listener out there, you know, what I would advise to you is, you know, if you are viewing the show, you are a fan of the show, you know, and you find motivation from it, fantastic. But please take time to step back, and if you are focusing on what health means to you in your life, you know, realize that there are so many different things that you need to consider to keep you safe, happy, healthy, not just for a season, but for seasons of your life. Yeah. That's what I wish, you know, and it's got nothing to do with this show or that show, because there's quite a few weight loss shows out there now. But yeah, Rebecca, because it is one of those issues that I don't think enough of us past contestants are talking about in a meaningful way. You have some past contestants that are like, oh my gosh, I hate the show, we were used, this or that. You have other contestants that literally will start defending the show as if they were the producer, or, you know, I'm like, hey, calm down.
Their
there.
jobs
you know,
at
your
stake.
names aren't in the creds. You're fine. Don't worry about it. You know, and you have other people that if I say something, I might get sued. Listen, the people on the show, and I can speak for some of the conversations I have had with trainers in the past, they genuinely care about us. They do. When we're there. And what I mean by that is they have their own lives. It's not their it's not your third grade teacher's responsibility to make sure that you turned into somebody productive later on. It was their responsibility then. And if they were able to impart everything that they could to you, then that's one thing. But it's your responsibility afterwards.
Well, I love the word responsibility, because it is, I mean, you achieve goals by taking actions, and nobody's going to care about your well-being more than you. So I think that was beautifully said, and I think that was well articulated in your letter. I want to comment on the 3 parts.
Okay.
So part 1 was take time to unpack. I thought that was brilliant. I loved it. You didn't, not in so many words, but what you really touched on was mental health and the fact that you've got to heal the mind as part of taking care of your body. Our mind and bodies are connected, and you know, look, it doesn't take a PhD in nutrition to know that vegetables are good for you, you know, like lean protein, you know, this is not a knowledge issue. It is, you know, a belief system and a philosophy and where our behavioral patterns are. But mental health and well-being is very important. And there is no shame in realizing that you might need to speak to somebody who can help you make better sense of where you're at in your well-being and what you can do to, you know, feel like your life is meaningful, that you are doing a good job at self-care, that you're happy and healthy. I think that was a very important point to make. And, we do want to make sure that if somebody is really going to be healthy, it's not just appearance based. In fact, appearance is a poor marker of health. It really is based on the choices that you make, what you do, how you feel, being able to connect to other people, which you also touched on, and just saying, slow down, take your time, make sure you lay down your track for good self-care. So I love that. I thought that was awesome.
Well, that can be hard for a lot of people too, to actually act upon that, to maybe know deep down inside that it would be great to speak with somebody about that is one thing, but to actually move yourself to do it is a complete different, can be scary kind of step. But I'm telling you, and it's so important. And I do encourage our listeners out there to explore this option. Because if you're looking to be healthy long term, it always helps to be able to really get some things out there in the open with somebody who's not biased to your situation, or to speak with a friend, a trusted friend, is a great thing. But sometimes you just need somebody who knows nothing about you and is willing to brush off what you said the moment you walk out. And for me, there was something really nice about that, knowing that I didn't burden them down. How crazy is that? Even,
Yeah.
But I mean, still, it's nice to be able to really have somebody who was going to leave it alone too.
Right. And I mean, you talked about trying to adjust to your face and who is this new me and what does he do? And that's a perfect type of thing that could be discussed if you had a life transformation and your parents did change. I'm not sitting here saying, you're not supposed to like yourself. I'm saying like yourself no matter what, but appreciate that you went through a transformation. Yes. in mind and body and well-being, and get some help in processing how to identify with the new appearance.
Well, not just that. It's not just really identifying, at least through my experience, it wasn't just identifying who I was in this new appearance, this new body, whatever. It was actually, in some weird way, and forgive me if this sounds like an extreme, but it's what I felt. I was mourning the loss of that other person. I didn't walk around when I was a big person thinking, oh my God, I'm horrible. Like, I had fun as a big person. I remember thinking...
The Matadors.
Yes, I was a Chicago Bulls Matador, and I love the Bulls, go Bulls. But I remember sitting down in the interview and for the show, and the interviewers were like, why do you want to be a show? Why do you want to do this? And out of my mouth that day, I remember it's explicitly, because the interviewer looked at me like, oh, I've never heard that one. I said, listen, I've done life big and I've had fun doing it. It's time to see if it's just as much fun on the other side. That was my reasoning behind wanting to be on this show. Also knowing that I needed to physically be healthier. But I was mourning the old Bernie. The old Bernie actually was awesome. I felt more insecure as a quote unquote healthier Bernie. Yeah. So it's like, where did this old Bernie go? Did he pass away? What's going on? I mean, I literally lost an 8th grader when you think about it in pounds. So it's like, yeah, where'd he go? He was pretty cool. I could guarantee you there's some people thinking, well, yeah, I like the old Bernie better than the newer one, So,
well, I mean, truthfully, you're the same at your core, but I think that the unfamiliarity of the shape and appearance is, how do I follow the rules here? What am I supposed to do? I knew how to be, Big Bernie, and I love that you had some fun. I think everybody needs to have some fun and rock it. I just love that.
I rocked.
Yeah.
And there's proof on the internet. So
I mean, let me ask you this. I feel like we're doing a total tangent, but I love the conversation, so I'm just going to go there. But now I'm going to get all questiony on you and ask, what do you think the best version of you is?
Wow. The best version of me. Okay, so what I liked from old Bernie was the fact that every day I wasn't thinking about, should I be eating this? Should I not be eating this? What size was healthiest for me? It was Bernie living. It was Bernie living big. I mean, and when I say that, it's not size. I was living big. I didn't think about those things. I went through life, just doing, being, enjoying, experiencing. I went on the show, and then all of a sudden, and this is society, and I am not putting this on the show. This is society saying, "Oh, something's wrong with you." I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean something's wrong with me? I'm cool. I was a Chicago Bull matador, you know." Um, we're going to change that for you, and we're going to make you more socially acceptable. And I'm like, hey, what skinny person thought that being big is a social stigma? Because that's not true. You know what I mean? So back to your question, I think for me, being able to genuinely get to a point where I know I am nourishing my body in a healthy way, and nourishing my mind and my spirit and my soul in a healthy way, and not thinking about every little step that I take,
Mm-hmm.
is where I ultimately want to live my life.
Right. So it's going to be more trust and more confidence, that you know how to take care of yourself. And that is going to come with good practice that you're already doing and continuing to learn and grow. But it comes from, having the guts to love yourself and not judge yourself, because you don't need to obsess over all the details. It's kind of like darts. You get on the board, there's a general guideline, but there's lots of flexibility. They don't all have to be bullseyes. But the articles we read, the 1,200 calorie diets, the Whole30 plans, the high fat thing, the whatevers, all that stuff is extreme, and it's there to make you feel inadequate, because if you're inadequate, you're going to buy their crap.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what I said. I really did like the old Bernie. I just knew that if I was going to continue having that much, I might want to get healthier. That was the thought process behind it. It's like, man, life is great. Life is fun. Oh my gosh, I should probably get healthier internally, right, so I can continue doing this. And then I do that, and I'm like, this isn't so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it was interesting.
It kind of makes me think like, you mentioned losing an 8th grader. It's almost like the 8th grader ruled the roost. It's your decision making and everything. So it's like, woo, school's out, summertime, tons of ice cream, tons of burgers, whatever. So there were no boundaries. There wasn't a good enough structure. And so there was nothing to be accountable to. You weren't saying health is a priority, health is important to me, so here's the things I'm going to do. Went to extreme from being on the show, coming off Lost Confused, and I think you're finding your true healthy balance where you can, like, you lost the 8th grader, so your inner caregiver is there. The parent you are now, the parent you always could have been, that's just like, okay, we got to get in a lane here. We've got to have some amount of boundaries, but there's flexibility and compassion and fun. Being healthy is fun if you do it right. If
Exactly.
it's not fun, you're doing it wrong.
And that's true. You know what? I've learned as the adult now in this relationship with myself. It's okay to say, you know what? I'm not enjoying this. Let me move on. But what is dangerous is when you say next, I'm not enjoying this, and you don't explore another option.
Right.
That's what's important.
Right. I love it. This has been a great conversation. We've got a couple more points to get through. So the second one was out with the old, in with the new. And you mostly focus on relationships with loved ones. What? Sorry?
Yeah. I was just going to say the title was Out with the Old, In with the New, well, sort of. And I put that in there on purpose. Okay.
Well, I loved it because I love relationships. It's something that I talk about often, because we think we have so much control over everything. And while we are in charge of our choices, it's actually our relationships that impact our choices. And there's lots of interesting dynamics. It sounds like you had a lot of experiences with relationship shifts and, the old and the new. And they're like, well, let's celebrate your win. And if it's not in a way that you feel comfortable with. So there was a lot of interesting things there. I think that boundaries are important and communicating is important. I loved when you suggested that for the people who matter most, sit down and talk to them about what you want their role to be in your life. I mean, that is classic boundary setting. And you don't, it's your choices, and you tell them how you want things to go. So I loved all of that. I love just the idea of new experiences. That is something that's very motivating, and it's addictive. We love new things. That's why we love the new, Fitbit thing, or the new, fitness craze, the new diet thing. We love new experiences, but we can use that to our advantage. What are new restaurants we can try? What are new menu items we can try? What are new things that we can do that feels like freedom and joy and pleasure, and not fear? Maybe I misunderstood something in the letter, but this is where I was like, okay, I don't know if I 100% agree. You talked about what sounded to me like avoiding events. Like if there's going to be something going on and you're not cool, kind of like just don't go. So is that what you meant?
Well, it's interesting. I really think it depends on the individual's person's family dynamic. And what I mean by that is you have those family members that just don't get it. And they're going to literally be bringing you plates of this and that and shoving it on you. And maybe they're not as receptive to understanding who you are and what your goals are. If that's the case, then yeah, maybe you're going to somewhat skip that. But I also set myself up for success by taking my own things, by making sure that I was incorporating parts of who the new person that I wanted to be was included in the event. So you have two options. You have to be very realistic about this. I am not promoting avoidance, but I'm promoting being realistic with what you're dealing with. Okay. Or if you're okay, I'm not. So let me explain this. Some people are okay with saying, you know what, I already told you. That's not what I want. Go away. Happy birthday. Bye. Go away. I'm here because I love you. Now get out of my face with the cake. I'm the person that's like, oh, God, thanks for the cake. And you guys hear how low my voice went? Thanks. Appreciate it. And then I'm over here trying to hide it. And then I don't feel like I'm being genuine to who I am. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, sometimes I do. You know what? Darn you for for grabbing me on this point, but it is very telling of my personality, and I'm okay with you doing that. But yes, I do avoid some things. Absolutely. Do I still have work to do in that department? Absolutely. But for those of you who are out there, and able to be very clear with your loved ones, more power to you. Tell them no one's for me, because I'm so proud of you. It's something I still have to work on. But yeah, you know what, Rebecca, thanks for pointing that out. And I will be, I'll be talking trash to you off air later.
Be voodoo dolling me.
Yes.
So here's the thing, Bernie. You are right. You do have an avoidant personality. It can also be, not that that's a thing, but I know what that avoidance is like. There's a tendency when you're experiencing a pain, a discomfort, to cut and run. But running away doesn't solve problems. Running away, avoiding, is what lets the 8th grader do whatever he wants with no boundaries. Avoiding, it's what causes a person to feel numb and not even know, if they're hungry or not around food, and just eat all businessy. So the avoidance is the problem. I'm not saying, you have to force yourself to go to every little thing. So I get that. I think we're more aligned than we aren't. But the way you become the kind of person that can say no to cake when they don't want cake is you practice being the person who says no to cake when they don't want cake.
I'm hearing you. And again, listeners, I wish maybe we should, you know what, we're going to move to a show here soon.
We're going to do a
video.
video.
You can see our faces. Like, I'm literally scowling at her because I know what she's saying is true as far as my personality is concerned. And I know that there's listeners out there going through the same thing. So I'm just going to pretend that we're all listening to this together and holding hands, okay? So please.
I'm holding your hand too, Bernie.
I know that.
And it just keep in mind, if events, you can always choose not to go, but events are about people and food. You could have the biggest food pusher. You're going to make me sad, or I'll
Yes.
die early of a heart attack if you don't eat this giant plate of food I made for you.
Yeah.
There are ways that you can deal with that discomfort of breaking your Nana's heart. And that's what you need to not avoid. Avoiding the party doesn't make you stronger. Okay. And
No,
this
you're absolutely
actually, I'm going to reference, we're only going to have a little bit of time to talk about upside of stress. We've talked about a lot of stressful things today. And the key point I want listeners to get from that book is stress is energy. Okay. So going to the party, needing to deal with food pushers is going to create stress. You have one of two choices. I can handle it, or I can't handle it. And when you avoid the party, you're saying, I can't handle it. You're not using the good energy that stress is giving you to make you a better person, to create a better life. Stress gives you energy to learn and grow. And so you practice, while you tolerate discomfort, you practice being that person. You don't have to be a jerk to Nana. Just say, that looks delicious, smells delicious. I'm okay right now. I'll get more later. Thank you. Love ya. So I feel energized and real lectury right now. So I'm sorry if I sound lectury. I'm just super
not at all.
excited.
As a matter of fact, listen, that's why we talk, and that's exactly what this show is for us to not just talk about, the happy stuff. We have to really dig deep here, and that's what I'm hoping all our listeners are doing as well, and getting something out of this, whether, you're moved to write me a letter about my letter and how you liked it or hated it, or if you want to write Rebecca a letter about how much you hate the fact that she is really pointing out some of the things I need to work on. Let's do that.
I'm a truth seeker.
But no, absolutely. And that is something I need to work on, and I will. And the book, Upside to Stress, I do encourage you to get out there and to read it, to listen to it if you haven't done it already. It really has changed my outlook on stress. One of the things that she talks about just right off the bat is how there's this old idea that stress is going to kill you. And she's saying, you know what? There are so many different ways we can look at it, and that's not necessarily the case. So check it out. It has changed the way that I thought. I just can't talk enough about this book.
Well, we'll make sure that we spend the next episode, in the future episode, the next one or two, going deep into the book or focusing on stress and everything like that. I did want to make sure, I've had great conversation, but I want to make sure that I quickly touch on that third point, which was my absolute favorite. I'm sure you could guess, which is redefine what health means to you. And you said it, you are more than a number. And you used my favorite word, which is fear. And fear can mean face everything and recover, or bleep everything and run. And so this is about...
I've never heard that. Like it.
Yeah. I actually learned that one from a client. So I use it a lot. But this idea of that you decide, how will you choose what healthy means to you and what that means. It's not in every meal that you eat. It's not every step you take in a workout. Health is not just physical. It is a state of well-being, physical and emotional, spiritual, all that stuff. It is much broader than the narrow definitions we give it. Is it's bikini season, I got to do lunges. So I think you're right, especially as you go off of a game show where you have everything handed to you and an incentive from the money and the competition and stuff, to real life. No one will care about you more than you. You decide what is your definition of health, the kind of person you want to be, and go after it. And so I love that. I think that every person who can hear my voice, been on the show, not on the show, whatever, if you can hear my voice, you need to make sure that you check the show notes. If Bernie gives me permission, I'd love to post a copy of the letter there, and comment, let us know what you think, and let's continue the conversation.
No, absolutely. And this was and is so important to me. We need to be able to define for ourselves what health is. And we have to be real about it and be responsible in how you do that, okay? I mean, if being healthy to you is eating, cake every day and a ton of soda, that's not it.
Probably
Come on.
won't feel good.
Probably
It
won't
goes back
feel.
to how you feel.
Yes, absolutely. But if you're real with yourself and responsible about it, this can be life changing.
Yeah.
It really can be. Absolutely, I'm going to go ahead and allow uh, Rebecca this up on her site, with the caveat that for our listeners out there, if you are moved to write a letter maybe to yourself, to a loved one, to a contestant on a weight loss show, share that with us. I would love to see what advice you have. I am a firm believer that this show and Rebecca and I, we are offering you a perspective, a responsible one, but you come with a wealth of knowledge and experiences that I would love to also hear. I would love to see what you have to say, and if I can grow from what you're sharing. So, yeah, you can put it out there, but listeners, do me a favor and get me some letters about how you're feeling. How about that, Rebecca?
Bernie love letters. I think that's a great idea. And
Fantastic.
so I look forward to talking to you next time. And we just want everyone to remember that health begins by being good to yourself.
Yes, and be sure that you are facing everything and recovering as opposed to the opposite.
Have everything and run.
Yes, be kind to yourself, and thank you so much for listening in. What a pleasure.